Also, new developments in the swing state of Arizona this morning. Voters there woke up to news that abortion will be on the ballot this cycle. Arizona's Secretary of State's office certified the ballot initiative, which would make abortion legal up to 24 weeks or so of pregnancy or fetal viability. Arizona is now the 7th state seeking to codify abortion access this November. Joining us now, Georgetown law professor Michelle Goodwin, host of On the Issues podcast, Democratic strategist Tara Dowdell, and former Republican Congresswoman Barbara Comstock from the swing state of Virginia. So, Michelle, yesterday the AP released an analysis finding more than 100 women in medical distress were turned away from ER since 2022. The report cites examples of women, quote, left to miscarry in public restrooms in Arkansas. A woman went into septic shock and her fetus died after an ER sent her home. What is causing all of this?
This is the tragedy that has emerged in the wake of the 2022 Dobbs decision, where the United States Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which was a 7-2 decision in 1973, in a decision that was authored by Justice Blackmun, who was put on the court by Richard Nixon. And in that time, what we've seen is complete devastation across the country, where there are women who have had ectopic pregnancies and not received care, where there are women and girls that have been raped and not been able to terminate those pregnancies. We've seen little girls going into elementary school and middle school now as parents. We have seen women bleeding for days without their doctors being able to intervene under fear that they would lose their medical licenses to practice or be criminally punished. In Texas alone, a doctor could be criminally punished up to 99 years incarceration, $100,000 fine, and also lose a medical license to practice if they violate Texas's abortion ban, which is incredibly restrictive. So we've seen so many instances, and what's important for us to take away is that whenever we hear that data, it doesn't even share the full picture. So what seems so horrific, what is horrific, where we should all pause and be empathetic, the reality is it's a fraction of the kind of terror that now women and girls are experiencing in the post-Dobbs age.
And when you say that it's just a fraction of it, where's the rest? How can we find out what the totality of it is?
That is such an excellent question. And the reality is that we've lived within a space of unequal healthcare treatment in the United States. It's been well documented for decades. And that is to say, there are poor women, there are women who live in rural areas, there are women of color who have had unfortunately challenging experiences within the medical realm. There are women who have died while trying to seek care. They become the invisible person. So if you even look at the stories that have captured the news, and they should, many of those who have suffered have been white women. A number of those have been women of means who could tell their stories and the media pick up on their stories. But there are the invisible women, the women who've never been seen before Dobbs and are not seen after Dobbs. But what we do know is there are high rates of maternal mortality and there are high rates of maternal morbidity. That data we do have, and we had that even going into the Dobbs decision. And it's, again, worth noting that in Dobbs, the Supreme Court ignored paying any attention to maternal mortality and maternal morbidity. In fact, maternal morbidity is mentioned only once, despite the fact that the United States is the most deadly country in all of the industrialized world to be pregnant.
Michelle, thank you for shining a light on places and people that often live in the shadows. I think it's so important that we always recognize that and the importance of shining that light. Michelle Goodwin, thanks for being with us this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Tara, I want to ask you about the political ramifications of it. I mean, the Arizona Secretary of State's office says that supporters of abortion rights shattered the record for the number of valid signatures gathered for a ballot initiative in the state, over 577,000 signatures. How much energy does this add to Democrats on Election Day?
It adds a lot of energy. And what we've seen is that this issue has been an animating factor in all of these special elections and legislative races. This has continued to be the reason why Democrats are projected to perform at one level, and they have exceeded the expectations. This has been the titular issue that has delivered victories, ongoing victories for Democrats. And I think that the energy is evident in the fact that they nearly doubled the amount of signatures, valid signatures, that were required for Arizona. And I think Michelle raised such excellent points. And one thing that's important to note about Arizona and the current status of the law there is that there is no exception for rape and incest in Arizona after that 15-week period. There is no exception in the current law. And so that is something that women across this country recognize and is driving their support of Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, and Barbara, meanwhile, last week, Trump told reporters abortion, quote, isn't a big factor anymore. Is he living in just a different parallel universe?
Oh, yes. As you know, as Donald Trump likes to enter the room to this song, It's a Man's World, they don't get it. And you see, you know, in states like Texas, where Ken Paxton is the attorney general, they are ignoring these health issues where, you know, women who have ectopic pregnancies aren't getting the health treatment. So even pro-life women who are very concerned with why aren't women getting health treatment, they understand that just throwing this back to the states isn't working. And that's why whenever these things, these issues have been on the ballot, they are winning overwhelmingly, because at the state level, you know, these legislators and these attorney generals, largely being men in these southern states, they are not responding to this in a humane level. They don't get it. They don't often understand the health needs of women. Certainly Donald Trump doesn't. And the only time he cares about it is when it's a swing state. That's why he said, gee, I don't want to really deal with it in this swing state of Arizona. He won't even say in Florida how he's going to vote on the initiative. So he tries to have it both ways. But the real issue is he does not care about the health issues that impact women, no matter, you know, what side of the issue he tries to be on. But I think this will have a big impact, because since the Dobbs decision, no Democrat incumbent has lost, and Democrats have overperformed and Republicans have underperformed because Republicans have not compassionately responded on this issue or really come to the table with good responses on this.